I've been shoved into a trashy romance novel as the heroine's pathetic, lovesick backup plan. A system tells me I'm going to be poisoned to death by the villainess, Scarlet Reed. To stay alive, I've decided to latch onto the villainess herself. I bring Scarlet stomach medication every day, fix her PowerPoint presentations, and even repair the plumbing in her apartment. The way Scarlet looks at me has gotten strange. Until today, when I went on a blind date to dodge a plot point. It's a fake marriage to get our families off our backs. We could do our own thing afterward, I told my date. The restaurant's window reflected Scarlet's smiling face. She stroked my arm gently. Thinking of a fake marriage with someone else, sweetheart? I guess that just means I'll have to lock you up. And we can play a real kidnapping game, just for us. 1. I opened my eyes. My head throbbed like it had been run over by a truck. A gaudy crystal chandelier on the ceiling spun, making my eyes swim. This was definitely not my $3,000 a month studio apartment. The air was thick with a cloyingly sweet perfume that made my stomach turn. The sheets beneath me were silk, slippery, uncomfortable. I shot upright, a cold sweat instantly soaking my back. There was a woman lying next to me. Her long hair was a mess, half her face buried in the pillow. The profile I could see was exquisite, with lines as delicate as a jade carving, breathtakingly beautiful, and chillingly lifeless. A cold, electronic voice exploded in my head. Beep. Host consciousness detected. Welcome to the novel. Host. Identity, Leo Carter. Heroine Isabella Vance's #1 doormat, backup plan, and personal ATM. Core mission. Avoid being poisoned to death by the supporting villainess, Scarlet Reed. Mission failure penalty. Annihilation. Good luck, host. I was stunned. The heroine, Isabella Vance, was the walking definition of someone who wants to have her cake and eat it too. The hero, Damian Blackwood, was a psychotic CEO, the kind of guy who lives by the motto, torture the heroine, then beg for forgiveness. And me, Leo Carter, the heroine's most loyal dog. My entire purpose was to be Isabella's ATM, to take a slap from the hero for her, and in the end, to be taken out by the most vicious villainess in the entire book, Scarlet Reed. A glass of poison red wine would be my exit. A quiet, unremarkable death. Like an ant crushed underfoot. Scarlet Reed. The name sent a chill down my spine. In the book, Scarlet was Damian Blackwood's obsessive admirer. Paranoid, ruthless, and dangerously cunning. She was hostile to any woman who got near Damian, and she considered the heroine, Isabella, a thorn in her side that had to be removed. And me, Isabella's faithful lapdog, I was on her list too. Later in the story, she sets a trap. A glass of wine sends me on my way. My death is described as being remarkably efficient. Not even a cremation necessary. The electronic voice continued. Host. Life countdown. 89 days, 23 hours, 59 seconds. Please take action immediately to evade the death outcome. Action what? Kind of action? Stay away from Isabella. The system immediately threw cold water on that idea. Warning. Forcibly breaking core character relationships will trigger timeline chaos and accelerate the host's death. Suggested. Strategy. Attempt to establish a positive connection with the key character, Scarlet Reed, to alter her behavioral logic. Establish a positive connection with Scarlet, the unhinged woman whose first instinct is to physically eliminate anyone who annoys her. I shivered. The odds felt about the same as convincing a shark to go vegan. But being poisoned was worse. I took a deep breath. Fine, let's do this. It's just sucking up to the villain, right? I'm already an expert at being a doormat. 2. I spent 3 days absorbing the original Leo's memories and relationships, and I started tracking Scarlet Reed's daily routine. The original Leo Carter was a truly dedicated backup boyfriend, a top university graduate with a good job as a department head at a subsidiary of Blackwood Enterprises. He made good money, but not enough to keep up with Isabella Vance's appetite. Luxury goods, designer bags, jewelry. Leo, honey, I saw that new limited edition bracelet. I want it so badly. Leo, my dad's company is having some cash flow problems. We need a little help. Leo, Damian, he yelled at me again. I'm so upset. I need to get away for a while. The original Leo's bank account was in a perpetual state of being drained. He had maxed out several credit cards. He was a walking, talking human ATM. And Scarlet Reed. She was the chief legal officer at Blackwood Enterprises headquarters. Damien's college junior and his most effective weapon. Brilliant, tough, with a mysterious background. She had a reputation at the office for being an unapproachable ice queen. Her only hobby seemed to be making Isabella's life difficult, and, by extension, eliminating destabilizing elements around Isabella. Like me, today was Monday. Like clockwork, Scarlet would go to the ridiculously expensive coffee shop on the top floor of the office building, order an iced Americano, and sit alone for half an hour. I got there 20 minutes early and staked out a spot around the corner in the hallway. In my hand, I clutched a box of high-end imported stomach medication. Based on my observations, Scarlet had serious stomach problems. Last Wednesday afternoon, through the frosted glass of her office, I saw her silhouette. She was doubled over, one hand pressed hard against her stomach. Her face was as pale as a sheet of paper, her forehead beaded with sweat. A few minutes later, her assistant rushed in with a glass of hot water and a small strip of white pills, the cheap kind you get at any drugstore. This was my chance. The coffee shop door opened. Scarlet walked out. She wore a perfectly tailored black power suit that made her look slender and poised. Her heels clicked against the marble floor with a sharp, crisp sound, like a metronome. She wore a neutral expression, her eyes distant, radiating a do-not-approach aura. Employees walking past instinctively held their breath and gave her a wide berth. I summoned my courage and darted in front of her, blocking her path. Ms. Reed. Scarlet stopped. She lifted her eyes. They were beautiful, a deep amber color, like a frozen lake. They clearly reflected my own tense face. Her gaze was cold, analytical, as if assessing the threat level of an inanimate object. My scalp tingled. I quickly held out the box of medication. My hand was shaking so much I almost shoved it into her chest. This is for you. My voice was tight. It's an imported stomach medicine. I heard it works really well. The air seemed to freeze. Scarlet's gaze dropped to the box, then slowly traveled back to my face. She didn't take it. She didn't speak. Those few seconds of silence stretched into an eternity. I could feel my shirt sticking to my back, soaked with cold sweat. Just when I thought I was going to freeze to death in her icy stare, the corner of Scarlet's lip twitched upward, a barely perceptible movement. The smile held no warmth. Mr. Carter. Her voice was quiet, without inflection, but it felt like a feather brushing against my eardrum. Are you trying to butter me up? 3. My heart nearly leaped out of my throat. Butter her up? The phrase was too blunt. Too dangerous. No. I waved my hands frantically, nearly flinging the medicine box across the hall. Ms. Reed, you've misunderstood. I just saw that you didn't seem well. I scrambled for the right words. Last Wednesday afternoon, outside your office. I saw you by accident. I was just thinking. Stomach pain is awful. A friend of mine used this and said it worked wonders. So I was babbling, a terrible actor caught in a lie. Scarlet's cold, amber eyes continued to watch me without a flicker of emotion, as if observing a boring one-man show. Just as the silent pressure was about to crush me, she reached out. Her fingers were long and slender, with a healthy, pale pink hue. They gently pinched a corner of the box I was holding out. Her fingertips were cool, carrying a faint, chilly fragrance. Oh, that was all she said. One syllable, her tone unreadable. Then, holding the box, she turned and walked away. The clicking of her heels resumed its steady rhythm, fading down the hall. I stood there, letting out a long, shaky breath. My back was freezing. Step 1 was complete. It felt less like a success and more like I just snatched my life back from the jaws of a predator. 4. After the medicine incident, I laid low for 2 days. My heart needed time to recover. There was no word from Scarlet. She didn't suddenly appear at my office door, nor did she have HR send me a termination letter. The silence was unsettling. But the system didn't issue any warnings, and my life countdown didn't speed up. So, I probably hadn't stepped on a landmine. Friday afternoon, just before quitting time, a relaxed pre-weekend vibe filled the department. I was staring at my computer, tweaking a project report for a meeting the next day. My phone buzzed. The screen lit up with a text from an unsaved number. The message was a single line. Mr. Carter, is this a good time? Scarlet Reed. My fingers froze on the mouse. Scarlet, how did you get my personal number? A chill snaked its way up my spine. I gathered myself and quickly typed back. Hi, Ms. Reed. Yes, it is. How can I help you? A few seconds later, another buzz. An important presentation on my computer is corrupted and won't open. Mr. Blackwood needs it first thing tomorrow morning. I heard you're good with PowerPoint. Could you please come up to my office? Suite 1806. Suite 1806. The executive floor, right next to the CEO's office. Scarlet's private office. I stared at the text, my mind racing. Go. It felt like willingly walking into a lion's den. Don't go. Then the medicine was a waste of effort. For a control freak like Scarlet, refusing her. The consequences might be even worse than poison. I gritted my teeth. Of course, Ms. Reed. I'll be right there. The elevator ascended smoothly, the floor numbers ticking upward. My heart hammered in time with them. Ding. The doors opened on the 18th floor. It was silent up here, the floors covered in thick, sound-absorbing carpet. At the end of the hall, light filtered through a frosted glass door. The plaque read, 1806. I took a deep breath and knocked. Come in. Scarlet's voice, cool and emotionless as ever, came from behind the door. I pushed it open and stepped inside. Her office was huge, decorated in a minimalist, cold tone palette. Black, white, and gray. Sharp lines, as cold as her gaze. She was sitting behind a large desk, a laptop screen glowing in front of her. The cool light illuminated her pale face. She wasn't wearing her suit jacket, just a fine white silk blouse, the sleeves casually rolled to her elbows, revealing slender wrists. Her brow was slightly furrowed. One hand was pressed to her stomach, the other gripped the mouse. She looked annoyed. Ms. Reed. I walked over quietly. She glanced at me, then gestured with her chin toward another laptop on the corner of her desk. The file is on the desktop, the one labeled urgent. My apologies for the trouble. Her words were clipped, as if speaking was an effort. I pulled up a chair across from her and sat down. I clicked open the file. Sure enough, it was a mess of garbled code and distorted images. A classic corrupted file. I ran a recovery program, the progress bar inching forward slowly. The only sounds in the office were the clicks of my mouse and the quiet hum of the computers, occasionally punctuated by Scarlet's soft, suppressed hiss of pain. Her stomach was acting up again. A fine sheen of sweat appeared on her temples. While keeping an eye on the progress bar, I discreetly glanced at the cup on her desk. Empty. Ms. Reed, I began tentatively. Would you like some hot water? Or I could make you some warm milk. Scarlet's hand paused on her stomach. She looked up at me, her gaze deep, as if analyzing my motives. After a few seconds, she gave a slight nod. Her voice was low. MHM. Hot water is fine. The cooler is over there. She pointed to a corner. I stood up and walked over to the water cooler. I took a clean glass mug, filled it with warm water, and then paused. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a small packet of something I'd bought on a whim at the convenience store downstairs. An instant herbal tea mix with honey and lemon. I tore it open, poured the powder into the mug, and stirred it with a disposable stick. A faint, pleasant citrus scent filled the air. I placed the mug gently on her desk beside her hand. I added some honey and lemon. It's supposed to be soothing for the stomach. Scarlet's gaze fell to the mug. The steam rose in a gentle curl, blurring the expression in her eyes. She didn't speak, but she reached out with her free hand and wrapped her fingers around the warm ceramic. Her fingertips seemed to curl slightly. She bowed her head and took a small sip. Her long eyelashes cast a shadow on her cheeks. She looked almost fragile. A chime from the laptop signaled success. Recovery complete. I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. Ms. Reed, the file is fixed. Scarlet put the mug down and looked at the screen. The important presentation was back to normal. Right? She said softly. Thank you. Happy to help, I said quickly. Well, if there's nothing else, Ms. Reed, I'll just... Wait. She cut me off. My heart jumped into my throat again. She opened a desk drawer and took out a small, beautifully wrapped box about the size of my palm. She pushed it across the desk toward me. For your time. I stared at it. The box was covered in deep blue velvet with a discreet, elegant logo stamped in gold foil. A top-tier chocolatier. A box that small probably cost half my monthly salary. Ms. Reed, this is really too much. It was nothing. I tried to refuse. Scarlet looked up. Her amber eyes seemed especially clear under the office lights, and especially commanding. I don't like owing people. Her tone was calm, but it carried a weight that allowed for no argument. Take it. I left Suite 1806 in a daze, clutching the box of scorching hot chocolate. As the elevator descended, I leaned against the cool metal wall, feeling like I was in a dream. Scarlet Reed, the legendary cold-blooded corporate shark. She actually gave me something, even if it was framed as payment. The act itself was bizarre enough. The system's cold, electronic voice chimed in right on cue. Key character Scarlet Reed's favorability toward host has slightly increased. Host mortality risk is temporarily stabilized. Please continue your efforts. Slightly increased. I squeezed the expensive box of chocolates in my pocket. The sharp corners dug into my palm. It felt unreal. Continue my efforts. How? The opportunity came sooner than I expected. Saturday night, past 10 o'clock. I had just showered and was sprawled on the couch in my boxers, scrolling through my phone. An unknown number called. It looked vaguely familiar. My heart skipped a beat. I answered. Hello. Mr. Carter. It was Scarlet's voice. In the background, I could hear the roar of rushing water and a dull, thudding noise like something hitting metal. Her voice sounded colder than usual, laced with a tightly controlled frustration. It's Scarlet Reed. The main water pipe in my condo just burst. I can't get a hold of building maintenance. I seem to recall. Your resume mentioned experience with plumbing repair? The original Leo Carter, in his quest to be an all-purpose servant for Isabella, had indeed acquired a number of life skills. Fixing pipes, unclogging drains, changing light bulbs, assembling furniture. He was a one-man handyman service. I never thought that skill tree would come in handy here. Yeah, I have a little experience, I said, forcing the words out. Ms. Reed, don't worry, I'll be right over. I'm sending you the address. She hung up without another word. A few seconds later, a location pin dropped into my messages. A top-tier luxury building in the city center. The Pinnacle. I threw on a t-shirt and jeans, grabbed the toolbox the original Leo had left behind and bolted out the door. Scarlet's condo was a duplex penthouse at the Pinnacle. Security was tight. She must have called ahead, because they let me up without any trouble. I stood before a massive, carved double door and rang the bell. The door opened almost immediately. Scarlet stood there. She looked like she had just been pulled from the chaos. The hem of her expensive silk robe was soaked, clinging to her calves. The dark water stains still spreading. She was barefoot, and droplets of water clung to her pale ankles. A few damp strands of black hair were stuck to her cheek, making her usually cold, perfect face look unusually disheveled and human. In here, she stepped aside, her voice a little hoarse. I followed her inside and was hit by a scene of utter chaos. The foyer was a disaster. An expensive rug was submerged, and the hardwood floors were covered in water. The roaring sound of a flood was coming from the master bathroom. The main shutoff valve is in the laundry room, behind a bunch of junk. I can't move it, Scarlet said, pointing. I immediately ran to the laundry room. Sure enough, a stack of heavy storage boxes was blocking the water main. It took all my strength to move them. By the time I was done, my t-shirt was drenched in sweat. I wrenched the valve shut. The deafening roar of water finally stopped. The world was suddenly quiet, save for the sound of dripping. I collapsed onto the wet floor, panting. Scarlet walked over. She stood at the edge of the flooded bathroom, looking at the ruptured pipe, and then at me, soaked and exhausted. She didn't say anything. She just handed me a clean, white towel. The cleanup was a massive job. The two of us, neither of whom was particularly skilled at housekeeping, worked until the early hours of the morning. We finally managed to clear the water from the bathroom and dry the floors in the living room and foyer. The soaked rugs were a lost cause. I was completely wiped, collapsed on her enormous, ridiculously expensive sofa. Scarlet went to the kitchen. When she came back, she was holding 2 glasses. She handed one to me. It was the same warm honey and lemon tea from her office. Thanks. My throat was raw. I took it and chugged half of it down. Scarlet sat in a nearby armchair, her posture somewhat relaxed. She didn't drink from her own glass, just held it, her fingers unconsciously stroking the smooth surface. Only a few soft ambient lights were on in the living room. The light was dim and gentle. Her profile seemed softer in the shadows, less sharp than usual. "Tonight, I'm in your debt," she said. Her voice was especially clear in the silence of the night, and it lacked its usual daytime chill. "Not all, Ms. Reed." I put my glass down and sat up straight. She was silent for a few seconds, her gaze fixed on something in the distance. "From now on," she began, then paused. "Outside of work, you don't need to call me Ms. Reed." I was taken aback. "Then, what should I call you?" Scarlet turned her head. Her amber eyes, which looked exceptionally deep in the dim light, were looking straight at me. "Scarlet." She said the name clearly, calmly, but it was like a stone dropped into a still lake, sending ripples through my mind. "Or," she added, her tone still flat, but her gaze seemed to have a hook in it that made my heart skip a beat. "You can call me Scarlet." "Oh, okay, Scarlet." I stumbled over the name. A faint smile seemed to touch her lips, gone in an instant. "Leo." It was the first time she'd said my name. "Not Mr. Carter." "Yeah. You've helped me a few times now." She lifted her glass to her lips, but didn't drink. The steam clouded her expression. "Tell me." Her voice floated through the vapor, sounding distant. "How should I repay you?" "Repay?" Coming from her, with that tone, it set off every alarm bell in my head. The hair on my arm stood on end. I let out a nervous laugh. "Scarlet, you're being too kind. It was nothing, just neighbors, colleagues, helping each other out." I spoke in a rush. "Really, no repayment needed. It's getting late. I should go. You get some rest." I practically launched myself off the sofa, grabbing my toolbox and making a break for the door. "Wait." Scarlett's voice came from behind me. It wasn't loud, but it had a magnetic quality that froze me in place. I turned back stiffly. She had stood up at some point and was holding a car key. "It's hard to get a cab this late." She walked up to me and pressed the key into my hand. The cool metal was still faintly warm from her touch. "Take my car. Just bring it to the office tomorrow." I looked down. Lying in my palm was a sleek, futuristic silver key fob with the unmistakable Wing B logo. A Bentley. My hand trembled. I almost dropped it. "No, I can't. This is too valuable. What if I scratch it or—" "It's just a car," Scarlet interrupted, her tone as casual as if she were lending me an umbrella. "It's insured." She opened the door. The night wind swept in, rustling the damp ends of her hair. "Drive safe." I drove the elegant, luxurious, multi-$100,000 Bentley Continental GT through the empty streets of the early morning, feeling like a chauffeur who'd stolen his boss's car. The steering wheel was cool, and the leather seats smelled faintly of leather and that unique, cold fragrance that belonged to Scarlet. The atmosphere in the car was strange. I felt dazed. Scarlet. She seemed different tonight. Less of that keep your distance coldness and more of something I couldn't quite define. Something softer, and that line about repaying me. What did she mean? The system's emotionless voice piped up. Key character Scarlet Reed's favorability toward host continues to increase. Mortality risk has significantly decreased. Host is advised to maintain the current strategy. Maintain what? Bringing her medicine, fixing her computer, and unclogging her pipes, in exchange for her increasingly soft gaze, and her letting me call her Scarlet? I shivered. For some reason, this felt more terrifying than her, just poisoning me. After the burst pipe incident, a strange sort of mutual assistance relationship formed between Scarlet and me. She was still the ice queen. When we saw each other at the office, she would just give a slight nod, her expression distant, as if the person who'd let me into her home in the middle of the night wasn't her. But in private, her problems seemed to multiply, and she only ever came to me. "Leo, the smart lock on my condo is malfunctioning. I can't get in." "Leo, the projector in my home office won't connect." "Leo, I don't know how to assemble this new treadmill." "Leo." My phone had become her personal tech support hotline, and I had become her personal handyman. Every time I went over, I would receive some form of payment. Sometimes it was a takeout box from a Michelin-starred restaurant. Sometimes it was a bottle of subtly expensive red wine. Once, it was even a gift card to a high-end electronics store. The value always far exceeded my labor. I tried to refuse, but Scarlett's response was always the same. "Take it, or throw it away." So I had to take it. Then I would rack my brain trying to figure out how to reciprocate. It couldn't be too obvious, but it had to be useful. I know your stomach acts up sometimes. This bistro's ginger turmeric soup has great reviews. I ordered some for your breakfast. Attached was a screenshot of the delivery order. I noticed the humidifier in your office looked a little old. This one is silent and has an aromatherapy function. Maybe you'll like it? Attached was a product link. I heard this type of neck pillow is really good for relieving shoulder tension. A package delivered directly to her condo. Scarlet's replies were usually brief. MHM. Thank you. Thoughtful. You couldn't read her emotions from them, but she used everything I sent. That humidifier now sat in the corner of her office, puffing out a faint, calming scent of sandalwood. The system's favorability alerts continued to ping a steady, slight increase. The death countdown seemed to have been paused. Everything was moving in a safe direction, except the way Scarlet looked at me. When we'd run into each other in the office break room, when we'd pass in the hallway, even when I was looking down at my phone, typing out one of my reciprocation texts, I could always feel a pair of eyes on me. When I'd follow the feeling and look up, she would have already turned away, her expression perfectly neutral, as if I'd imagined it. But the feeling of being watched, it was getting stronger, like being targeted by a predator in the shadows. It was terrifying. One afternoon, I was in the company cafeteria, shoveling food in my mouth, when my phone started vibrating like crazy. 2 words flashed on the screen. Isabella. Isabella Vance. The heroine. The person I was supposed to be simping for. And one of the biggest reasons for my death countdown. My scalp went numb. My first instinct was to hang up, but then I remembered the system's warning about not breaking core relationships. I steeled myself and answered. Hello, Isabella. On the other end, Isabella's voice was thick with tears, a mix of anger and panic. Leo, where are you? Ugh, I'm so furious. That bastard Damien, he yelled at me for that new secretary of his. I'm leaving. Right now. Immediately. You have to come pick me up. We're going to the Cloudscape. I want the best suite. On your card. Hurry. I can't take it anymore. A barrage of commands. Imperious. Entitled. My temples throbbed. The Cloudscape. One of the most expensive hotels in the city. The presidential suite started at 5 figures a night. On my card, I glanced at the pitiful 4-digit balance in my banking app. Then I looked at the bright red death countdown on the system interface. On one side was Isabella's wrath and the risk of derailing the timeline. On the other was the villainess's poison and Scarlet's increasingly strange gaze. Which was worse? I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff. Isabella, I said, trying to make my voice sound apologetic. I'm so sorry, I can't get away right now. There's a super urgent project at work. The big boss is personally overseeing it. If I leave now, I'll be fired for sure. I lower my voice, trying to create a sense of urgency. And if I get fired, then how could I help you in the future? You know. There was a pause on the other end. Isabella's sobbing stopped. Her tone was suspicious. Really? What project is that important? I swear on my life. I've out. Mr. Blackwood himself is leading it. It's top secret. If I bail, the chief legal officer, Ms. Reed, will have my head. I didn't hesitate to use Scarlet as a shield. Sure enough, at the mention of the chief legal officer, Isabella flinched. Her tone softened, but she sounded even more pitiful. But what do? I have to get out of that horrible house. I can't stand another minute. Don't worry, Isabella. I quickly soothed her. Here's what we'll do. I'll book the room for you at the Cloudscape right now. I'll put on my card. You can just go and check in under my name. The second I'm done here, I'll rush right over to you. Really? She asked, still doubtful. Absolutely. I promised. Well, okay then. Isabella reluctantly agreed. But you have to be quick, and I want the best room. The one with the best view. You got it. Leave it to me. I hung up, my back drenched in sweat. I looked at the pathetic balance in my banking app, then at the suffocating prices on the Cloudscape's website. I gritted my teeth and opened a fintech loan app. My finger trembled as I typed in the amount. $5,000. A 12-month repayment plan. The interest rate was predatory. Confirm. Submit. A few seconds later, a text confirmed the loan had been deposited. It felt like a cold chain tightening around my neck. Numbly, I opened the Cloudscape app and booked the most expensive Riverview suite. For one night. Payment successful. I sent a screenshot to Isabella. All set, Isabella. Just give them my name at the front desk. I'll get there as soon as I can. Isabella replied with a smug emoji. I put my phone down and stared at the cold food on my cafeteria tray. I had completely lost my appetite. My stomach felt like it was filled with waterlogged cotton, heavy, cold, and suffocating. At 3 in the afternoon, I was staring blankly at my computer screen, my mind still bleeding over the $5,000 loan. The internal office phone rang, its shrill sound making me jump. I picked it up. "Mr. Carter." The sweet voice of the receptionist came through. "There's a Ms. Vance here to see you. She said you were expecting her." "Isabella? Why was she at the office?" My blood ran cold. "Where? Where is she now?" "She's already in the elevator. She said she wanted to surprise you." "Surprise? More like a heart attack, if she caused a scene here. If Scarlet saw her." I shot to my feet, the legs of my chair scraping loudly against the floor. "Stop her. Find any excuse. Tell her I'm in a critical meeting. Tell her to wait for me in the coffee shop downstairs. I'll be right down." I yelled into the receiver. Oh, okay, Mr. Carter." The receptionist sounded startled. I slammed the phone down, grabbed my jacket, and bolted from my office like I was fleeing a fire. I had to intercept her before she got to my floor. The elevator was stuck on the 15th floor, not moving. My heart was pounding. I turned and sprinted for the emergency stairs. I took the steps 3 at a time, my lungs burning. I burst into the ground floor lobby, gasping for breath. Across the expansive lobby, I saw Isabella standing at the reception desk, talking impatiently to the young woman there. She was wearing an expensive pink dress and carrying a Hermes bag. Her makeup was perfect. She had clearly dressed up to visit her hardworking backup boyfriend and maybe show off a little. I took a moment to catch my breath, forced a smile onto my face, and walked quickly toward her. "Isabella." She turned at the sound of my voice. Her face immediately broke into a pouty, yet flirtatious smile. "Leo, what took you so long? I've been waiting forever." She clicked over on her high heels and instinctively reached out to take my arm. I flinched back, a sudden, sharp movement, and dodged her hand. It was as reflexive as touching a hot stove. Isabella's hand froze in midair. The smile on her face froze, too. Her eyes filled with confusion and hurt. "Leo? You." "Isabella." I cut her off, my voice urgent. "It's not a good place to talk here. Let's go outside to the coffee shop." I practically herded her toward the lobby exit, desperate to get away from this place. But just as I turned, a flicker of movement in my peripheral vision caught my eye. The doors of the executive elevator were sliding open silently. A tall, sharp silhouette in black was stepping out. Scarlet. She was holding a file, looking like she'd just come from a meeting. Her gaze swept casually across the lobby, and then, with unnerving precision, it locked onto Isabella and me. From 50 feet away, through the flow of people, I felt it. That cold, analytical gaze. It was like a scalpel dissecting me, and dissecting the empty space where Isabella's hand had to try to grab my arm. Scarlet's stride seemed to falter for a split second. Her face was a blank mask. Her eyes were as deep and unreadable as a frozen pond. Then, just as quickly, she looked away, as if she had only seen 2 unimportant strangers. She continued toward the main entrance, the steady, rhythmic click of her heels on the marble floor sounding like a countdown. I managed to get Isabella settled in the coffee shop next door. I listened to her complain for half an hour about how Damien was a heartless cheater, how he was bewitched by that little tramp, and how he just didn't appreciate her. In the middle of her rant, she casually mentioned a new limited edition bracelet she'd seen. "Leo, you're the only one who understands how hurt I am." Fighting back the pain in my wallet, I used a buy now pay later service to soothe her hurt feelings. Finally, I got her into a cab back home to Damien's mansion. Watching the taxi disappear into traffic, I leaned against the cold wall of the building, feeling completely hollowed out. My heart was bleeding. My phone buzzed. I assumed it was a payment reminder and swiped it open irritably. It was a message from Scarlet. A single cold line of text. 7 o'clock tonight. That bistro we like. I made a reservation. It wasn't a question. It was a summons. I stared at the message, and my stomach dropped to the floor. At 7 o'clock sharp, I stood outside the bistro. It had a classic, elegant decor and a quiet atmosphere. Scarlet was already there, seated at a secluded table by the window. She had changed out of her work clothes and was wearing a soft, cream-colored cashmere sweater. Her long hair was loosely tied up, with a few strands framing her face, softening her sharp features. 2 steaming bowls of soup were already on the table, along with a few small, elegant side dishes. She didn't look at me. She was looking down at her phone, her profile serene in the soft light. I walked over and pulled out the chair opposite her. Scarlet. She finally looked up, her eyes lingering on my face for a moment before she put her phone down. I ordered for you. The ginger soup. It's good for your stomach. Her tone was flat, unreadable. Thanks, I said, feeling awkward. The waiter brought our food, and we began to eat in silence. The atmosphere was thick with unspoken tension, the only sound the soft clinking of spoons against ceramic. I couldn't taste anything. My mind was a mess, replaying Isabella's tearful face, the phantom notifications from my loan and credit apps, and the memory of Scarlet's icy glare in the lobby. This afternoon, Scarlet said suddenly. Her voice wasn't loud, but it made my hand jerk, nearly spilling my soup. She calmly took a spoonful of her own soup, blew on it gently, her movements graceful. Isabella Vance came to see you. It wasn't a question. It was a statement. My throat felt dry. Yeah, she wasn't in a good mood. Not in a good mood. Scarlet looked up. Her amber eyes were translucent in the light, and they held a hint of amusement. And that requires Mr. Carter to be at her beck and call. Her tone was placid, but the words were like needles pricking at my nerves. It wasn't like that, I said, trying to defend myself. It was just, as a colleague, cheering her up to the point that you had to physically dodge her touch. Scarlet's voice remained even, as if she were discussing the weather, but her words hit the bullseye of my guilt. I was speechless. My back was slick with sweat. She knew. She had seen everything. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. What could I say? How could I explain? I'm dodging the heroine because I'm trying to stay alive. Would Scarlet believe that? Or would she think it was just a pathetic excuse? Scarlet watched my miserable squirming, and the corner of her mouth seemed to lift in a ghost of a smile. She picked up the serving utensils, placed a crisp slice of water chestnut on my plate, and said in her normal, detached tone, "Eat. Your stomach is your own. It's not worth getting worked up over." The rest of the meal was torture. Scarlet didn't mention Isabella again. She made small talk about work or commented on the food. The atmosphere seemed to relax, but I felt like there was a dangerous undercurrent beneath her calm gaze. The quiet before the storm. After dinner, Scarlet didn't let me see her out. She had already called for a car. I walked home alone. The night air was cool on my face, but did nothing to clear the anxiety from my mind. My phone rang again. A voice call this time, from a contact named Aunt Carol, my mom's best friend, a notoriously enthusiastic matchmaker. "Leo, sweetie," Carol's booming voice shot through the phone. "You're off work, right? I'm not bothering you?" "No, not at all, Carol. What's up?" "Good news, wonderful news," she said excitedly. "Your mother asked me to keep an eye out for a nice girl, and boy, did I find one. She's perfect. Her name is Chloe Davis. 27, has her master's from overseas, works in investment banking, she named a salary that made my jaw drop. And she's beautiful, very classy, from a great family. And here's the best part. Carol lowered her voice conspiratorially. Her family is putting the pressure on, too. They just want her to find someone solid and dependable to settle down with, to get them off her back. You two could meet up? If you hit it off, you could have a pretend relationship to help each other out. Wouldn't that be great? Get the family off her back? A pretend relationship. An idea, a brilliant one, I thought, flashed in my mind. Of course, what was my biggest problem right now? Isabella, the ticking time bomb, and the core relationship I was forced to maintain. If I was officially taken, Isabella wouldn't feel so comfortable calling me in the middle of the night crying, or using my credit card to buy jewelry, or dragging me into the drama between her and Damien, right? And Damien, that psycho CEO, hearing that his rival was in a relationship, he might leave me alone, too, and Scarlet. I shook my head, not daring to think too hard about that. The point was, getting a fake girlfriend would create boundaries, save my wallet, and lower my risk of being collateral damage in the main couple's drama. It was a perfect plan. "Carol," my energy surged. "You're a lifesaver. Thank you so much, this woman. Can I meet her?" "As soon as possible." 2 days later, On Saturday afternoon, I met Chloe Davis at a stylish restaurant downtown. She was just as Carol had described, poised, elegant, and intelligent. The conversation flowed easily because we had the exact same goal. Leo, Carol probably gave you the rundown, Chloe said, taking a graceful sip of her water. My family is relentless, especially my grandparents. Their health isn't great. They just want to see me settled. She gave a helpless smile. But right now, I have absolutely no intention of getting married. My job is too demanding. I get it completely. I nodded eagerly. It's the same with me. The way my mom talks, you'd think she expects me to give her a grandchild by tomorrow. We shared a look of mutual understanding, like soldiers in the same trench. So what you're proposing is? Chloe looked at me, her eyes frank. My idea is, I leaned forward, lowering my voice. We could have a simple agreement. Publicly, we're a couple. We can meet each other's parents if we need to handle the family pressure. Privately, we live our own lives, no strings attached. Financially, we split everything. No debts to each other. And for the timeline, maybe a year to start. If either of us finds someone real or decides it's not working, we can end the agreement at any time, no questions asked. The plan tumbled out of me, feeling more perfect with every word. Chloe listened intently, her finger tapping lightly on her glass as she thought. Live our own lives. No strings attached, she repeated. Then, she nodded, a relaxed smile spreading across her face. That sounds very reasonable. I'm in. She held out her hand. So, Leo, partner. A huge weight lifted from my shoulders. I shook her hand firmly. Partner, Chloe. With the deal struck, the mood lightened considerably. We chatted about our jobs and swapped horror stories about our family's matchmaking attempts. Honestly, I said, cutting into my steak, dealing with family is harder than dealing with my boss. If your boss gets mad, you can just quit. If your family gets mad, that's a nuclear event. Chloe laughed. Tell me about it. The last guy my mom set me up with asked me how many kids I planned on having and whether I'd aim for a boy or a girl. I almost threw my coffee in his face. Ha ha ha. I laughed out loud. That's nothing. I had one ask if I'd be okay with her ex-boyfriend living next door, so she could take care of him. Oh my God. We were so caught up in conversation that we didn't notice her. In a corner booth, partially hidden by a large potted plant, a slender figure in a black dress sat silently. There's only a glass of ice water in front of her, untouched. Her position was perfect, obscured by the lush green leaves, but with a clear line of sight to our table. Scarlet. Her head was slightly tilted, one hand propping up her chin in a pose of casual indifference. But the knuckles of her other hand, hidden below the table, were white from gripping something tightly. Her beautiful amber eyes, peering through the gaps in the leaves, were like a sniper's scope locked onto Chloe and me. Her gaze was deep, cold, utterly devoid of warmth, like a frozen-over lake. My deal with Chloe went great. We even bonded over our shared experience with our overbearing matchmaker. By the way, Chloe said, putting down her silverware, if we're going to pull this off, we should probably get our story straight, so we don't mess up. Good point. I agreed. For my parents, just say I'm stable, and my personality is pretty down-to-earth. For my grandparents, you can say I'm gentle. I like to read and cook. I raised an eyebrow. Chloe gave a slightly embarrassed smile. Old-fashioned people. They like a girl who can run a household. The truth is, I can barely make instant noodles. Don't worry. I've got you covered. I said, I'm a decent cook. If we ever need a demonstration, I can whip something up. We went back and forth, sharing details for our script, feeling more and more confident in our arrangement. Well, Chloe checked her watch. I should get going. I have a conference call this afternoon. Okay, I'll walk you out. I offered, standing up. No need, I drove, she said with a wave. Keep in touch. Definitely. We walked out of the restaurant together and waved a friendly goodbye at the door. As I watched her walk toward the parking garage, I let out a long sigh of relief. The sky seemed bluer. Freedom, security, my wallet was safe. My life was no longer in immediate danger. I'm a cheerful, off-key tune as I walked to my car, a used Honda parked on the street. A practical, reliable ride. I pulled out my keys and hit the unlock button. The car chirped twice, its lights flashing. Just as I pulled the door open, a pale, slender, long-finger hand reached out from beside me and pressed gently against the door, stopping it from moving. I jumped, whipping my head around. My heart stopped. Scarlet. When had she gotten here? She was standing close to me. So close I could smell the familiar, crisp, cold scent of her perfume. So close I could see my own pale, terrified face reflected in her deep amber eyes. She wasn't in her usual black. Today she wore a striking, deep burgundy dress that made her skin look as white and cool as porcelain. Her lips were painted a matching red, curved into a gentle, almost tender smile. But her eyes were like frozen wells, devoid of any human emotion. She tilted her head, studying me like a predator admiring its prey. Her other hand, nails painted the same shade of burgundy, was slowly, deliberately stroking my steering wheel. The gesture was as soft as a caress. Her voice, when she spoke, was sweet, gentle, and carried a bizarre, skin-crawling intimacy. Like a lover's whisper, it froze the blood in my veins. Sweetheart. Her red lips parted, and she uttered the word that shattered my world. Thinking of a fake marriage with someone else? Her fingertips traced the cool leather of the steering wheel, making a soft, hissing sound, like a snake slithering through dry leaves. She smiled, a beautiful, blooming expression, but her eyes roiled with a darkness so thick it was suffocating. Well then, I guess that just means I'll have to lock you up myself. Her fingertip, ice cold, tapped the back of my hand, and we could play a real game of capture and keep. Scarlet's words were like a bucket of ice water dumped over my head. I was frozen, my fingers still wrapped around the car door handle. Cold. She was too close. So close I could count her eyelashes. So close I could smell that dangerous, alluring scent. Scarlet. My voice was a dry rasp. She tilted her head, her eyes like a cat's, fixed on its prey. Her fingers continued to draw circles on the steering wheel. Yes. I took a deep breath. Then I reached out, cupped the back of her head, and kissed her. The moment our lips touched, I felt her whole body go rigid. Her eyes widened slightly, filled with pure shock. I kept my eyes closed, feeling the flutter of her eyelashes against my cheek, like a startled butterfly. The kiss was brief, a light press. I pulled back. It's not a fake marriage. It's real. With you. Scarlet's expression was frozen. She blinked once. Then again. You. The famously eloquent chief legal officer was, for the first time, speechless. I took the opportunity to kiss her again, quickly. I'm in love with you. From the first time you took my stomach medicine. From the first time you called me sweetheart. From the first time you let me call you Scarlet. The tips of Scarlet's ears turned bright red. Her expression shifted from shock to confusion, and finally, settled into a look of dangerous delight. Leo, a slow, sharp smile spread across her face. You know what happens when you lie to me. I know. I cut her off. You'll lock me up. But I'm not lying. I pulled out my phone and, right in front of her, deleted Chloe Davis's contact information. We'll go to the courthouse tomorrow. We're buying rings right now. Scarlet stared at me for a long moment. Then she laughed. It wasn't her usual cold, cutting laugh. It was a real, happy sound. Okay, she said. Then she grabbed my tie and pulled me into another kiss. This one was fierce and demanding. My back slammed against the car door. It hurt, but it was worth it. 3 months later, at our wedding, Isabella Vance was in the audience, sobbing her eyes out. Damian Blackwood looked like he wanted to commit murder. I wrapped my arm around Scarlet's waist. Honey, MHM, were you really going to poison me back then? Scarlet's eyes narrowed. Thinking of running away now? Never. I kissed her. Just curious. She leaned in and whispered in my ear, her warm breath tickling my skin. It was a laxative. The worst it would have done is keep you on the toilet for 3 days. I froze. But the system. What system? She asked, looking genuinely confused. I smiled. Nothing. I love you. On the 3rd day of our honeymoon, I found a hidden room in the study of Scarlet's mansion. It was a stark white room. On a table was a single photograph. It was a crime scene photo of Damian Blackwood and Isabella Vance. Dead. Honey. I turned around, holding the photo. Scarlet was standing in the doorway, holding 2 glasses of red wine. Oh, you found it, she said, her smile as sweet as if she were commenting on the weather. They bullied you. Scarlet placed the wine glasses on the table. Damian yelled at you 3 times. Isabella maxed out 5 of your credit cards. She counted off my grievances on her fingers. So I gave a permanent solution. A chill went down my spine, but Scarlet threw her arms around my neck. "Is my husband scared of me?" she asked, looking up at me, her eyes wide and innocent, like a kitten that had misbehaved. I sighed and ruffled her hair. "Next time, just tell me. That kind of dirty work is a husband's job." Scarlet's eyes lit up. She stood on her toes and kissed me. "I knew you were the best. Oh, by the way," she pulled a list out of a drawer. "These people bullied you too. Should we invite them for a picnic this weekend?" The names on the list were all colleagues who had once made fun of me. I smiled, took the list, and tore it into pieces. "No need. Just make them work overtime. Every day. A fate worse than death." Scarlet collapsed onto the sofa, laughing. "My husband is so cruel." But she suddenly rolled over and pinned me beneath her. I love it. Later, Blackwood Enterprises went bankrupt. Scarlet and I opened a small dessert shop. Every day, we sell poisonous mushroom-themed cupcakes. Business is booming.